Are you really okay with feeling the way you feel right now for the rest of your life? I'm the kind of person who is 100% into natural remedies, maybe even 1,000%. I'm not going to the doctor literally unless I feel like I'm dying. I'm not recommending this for everyone. I'm not recommending this for you. This is me. This is how I am. And I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not alone. So if you're the kind of person who feels this way, you are adamant about avoiding pharmaceuticals for menopause no matter what, and the madness of menopause hits you and escalates, what do? You might be wondering if there are really natural ways to deal with all of this, or if you're simply going to be forced to power through it for the next couple of years or decade or even longer. Could be the rest of your life, right? I have good news for you. There are natural ways, so stick around. That's what we're talking about today. Welcome to the Women Rockin' Midlife Podcast, soulful wellness to elevate your second act. You deserve to deeply love every moment of your life, living your best life with pure joy, optimal health and abundance, with the energy, time, and inner peace to savor experiences with your loved ones and with yourself. Hi, I'm Jen Kunkel. Join me on this soulful journey to complete wellness in midlife and beyond. You might know my story about when I first was in perimenopause and I had a couple of panic attacks and I was feeling all the emotional stuff going on, mood swings, anxiety, wild thoughts going through my head, kind of feeling like I was losing my mind. And I was able to get that in check. I actually only ever had 2 panic attacks. They were within a very short period of each other. And after the second one, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do something about this. And I didn't relate it to menopause or perimenopause at the time. I simply have 25 plus years experience now in meditating, mindfulness, energy work, mind-body practices, and I'm continuously learning different modalities and knowing how to use these practices to help alleviate emotional symptoms and physical symptoms. So when I was feeling the panic attacks, that was my go-to, and I found some things that worked, and I never actually had a panic attack after that second one. So that was good. I still didn't know that it was due to menopause because I thought menopause was just you stop having your period. Maybe you get some hot flashes. And I didn't know anything beyond that because nobody talked about it then. When I started getting further into menopause, I was not using all of my practices on a regular basis. I got out of the habit, the emotional stuff got under control. And like I said, I didn't know it was related to menopause. So I didn't know I needed to keep doing it. I mean, it's always good to keep doing it, of course, but I am imperfect like everybody else. So I got out of the habit, got distracted with life. Although when you hear this story, you're going to think, what were you distracted with, Jen? Staying in bed? Because what happened is I started to feel the symptoms like weight gain, feeling sluggish, no energy, trouble sleeping. And I didn't even know that trouble sleeping had anything to do with menopause. Even the gaining weight, I thought it was just, okay, I'm eating crappy. I got out of all my good habits and I'm not eating well. Yes, that was some of it, but at some point, it didn't seem to matter. It did not seem to matter what I was doing. And I just felt like I was gaining weight no matter what, or not losing weight. And I felt so sluggish. I had inflammation going on in my body, no energy. I was just dragging myself through the day. And if I did have to go do something, I literally could not wait to be done with it and just get back into bed or just get back into my pajamas and lounge around. I was feeling depressed, and, I didn't really care about how I looked. I didn't want to do anything, even fun stuff. I just didn't want to do anything. And then I turned it around. Okay. I turned it around by using these similar practices that I used before, that I've been using for over 25 years now. And I also started moving my body and getting some sunlight. So everything was natural. Everything is something where I didn't need a device. I didn't need supplements. I didn't need another practitioner, right? I mean, because this is what I do. So I went from feeling like, well, I guess this is my life now, when I was feeling just so sluggish, and I felt like I was always swollen, and it felt just difficult to get through the day. And I really thought, well, this is just my life now. This is how it is. And I went from that to the turnaround, where at the end of the summer one year, it was, I think, September, we were up in my family's mountain property camping, and I decided, you know what? Well, a neighbor had told me that she was doing this 75 hard thing. And I was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. And then she said no alcohol. I was like, I'm out. And then I decided, I don't know, this was a little while later. I think she was almost done with it, or totally done with it, by the time I decided that I'm going to do it. So I decided at the end of September, or maybe it was even earlier in September, whenever it was, I decided I'm going to do 75 hard. And this is going to be over Halloween. Well, if you don't know what 75 hard is, first of all, it's a challenge. Andy Frisella, the Real AF podcast, and it is, I forget what all the things are. You work out twice a day, at least 45 minutes. One of the workouts needs to be outside. You drink a gallon of water every day. You take a progress photo of yourself every day, and you do some kind of diet that you choose, and no cheat days, period. Okay. And it has to be like a diet where you're going to actually accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish. Now, if you decide to do it, don't go from my list. Go actually look it up. He has a book, like, get the details. Anyway, I feel like there was something else on the list too. So like I said, don't go by my list. Oh, read 10 pages a day, which that was my favorite part. Honestly, I'm still reading like crazy after doing that. And just to note, I don't recommend doing that as a weight loss program, because I think it is so extreme that what ended up happening is, when I was done, I kind of fell off the wagon and went the opposite direction. Just duly noted. But I did it, and I did it of the hardest time of the year. I decided I'm going to do 70. So I go from feeling like, I guess this is my life now, where I just feel like crap all the time. I'm bloated and inflamed everywhere, and I have swollen everything. I have no energy. I don't get any sleep. 2, I'm going to go do 75 hard right now over Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, a 4-day road trip with friends who I usually like to drink with. And I started this in the middle of a camping trip with no preparation. We usually also drink when we're camping. There's always food, snacks, treats, and I had zero preparation. I was going to wait until the Monday when we got back, except we were camping with my mom, and she had a book. Because I didn't know, I was like, what am I going to read? And at the time, I thought the rule was it had to be an actual book, not a Kindle book. So I was like, I don't have a book, so I'm not able to start. But I found a book in the camper that was a self-help, personal development, spiritual kind of book. And I said, oh my gosh, here's a book. I can start right now. So I did. So the point is, I went from this one extreme where I just thought, oh my gosh, this awfulness of my body is my life now, where my body hates me. I hate my body, whatever. And it's just not being the vehicle that it needs to be for me to have the life that I want. And I guess, oh well, that's just what's going on. So that was my feeling like, I'm just going to have to power through it. And I don't even think I still realized all of it was due to menopause. It sort of all just felt like it feels so overwhelming that you're not even really thinking clearly, And that's how I felt then. I didn't really understand what was happening. And I went from that to, hey, I'm going to do this super hard thing for 75 days, which is like 2.5 months, okay, over the most party time of the year, plus a road trip with friends where, so that just added to the difficulty, where I knew we were going to have, I think it was like a 7-hour drive. So I was still going to have to do my 2 workouts, drink the gallon of water on a drive. And I already have to pee a lot on a road trip. So I was like, oh my gosh. But I still just said, you know what? I'm not making any excuses. And that was really the point of the program. And anyway, so I did it. And I did have to start over a couple of times because that's one of the rules too. If you mess up even one little thing, even if you just forget to take your progress photo, you start over from day 1. I don't care if you're on day 74. So at the beginning, I did accidentally eat a couple of things that after I ate it, I looked at the ingredients and I was like, oh, that has sugar in it, which I was doing no sugar. I was very careful after having to start over twice because I definitely wanted to make sure I finished by New Year's Eve, and I finished on, I think it was December 30th. Okay, but that's not what this episode's about. I did this complete turnaround when at first I was just like, okay, this is just how it's going to be. I was just going to power through. And then I decided, no, I'm not. I can't. This is crazy. I can't live like this. And actually, that's the first step is, so I'm going to tell you how I did that. I'm going to tell you how I did that in 5 steps, okay? And the first step was I decided it was unacceptable for that to be my life now. No freaking way. No way. And that is huge. So if you are feeling like you have to power through, if you're feeling like I just have to live with these symptoms, I just have to live with it being this way, that's the first thing you need to do. You got to decide that you're not going to do that. You need to decide that it's not acceptable for you to just have to power through and push through. And I know if you're there, I know that it seems so chaotic right now. And the thought of not powering through, like maybe you don't know what to do. Maybe you don't know how. But seriously, it doesn't matter how yet. The first thing you have to do before you figure out how is you have to decide. You have to decide that you're going to find a how. Because do you really want to live your life that way? Are you really okay with feeling the way you feel right now for the rest of your life? And I get it. I get being committed to not taking any pharmaceuticals. I get that. And I was the same way. I felt the same way. That was not an option either. But neither was living the way I was living. It was awful. It was not fulfilling. I had no purpose. I mean, I probably had some purpose, but really, every day was a struggle. I did not look forward to it. That is no way to live. It didn't actually last for very long, but it could have. It could have if I hadn't woken up and said, you know what? I cannot do this. This is not me. This is not who I am. So if it's not who you are, then I'm going to challenge you to take that first step. Decide that it is unacceptable for you to live your life like this. No way, no how. You will figure it out, right? You will find a way to deal with this naturally and effectively. Deal? All right. Hopefully you're with me. If you're with me, I want you to reach out and I want you to tell me that it is unacceptable for me to live my life like this. All right. Okay. Just giving you a moment to process that. Seriously. Decide. Flip that switch. There is a switch in you and you can flip it by simply going, you know what? That is enough. Enough is enough and I'm not doing this anymore. Something has to give. Something has to change. All right. And number 2. Here's what I did next after I decided. I came up with a plan. I didn't have the whole thing worked out. I didn't know if it was even going to work, but I had to do something. I had to try something different. So I came up with a plan. At the time, my plan was pretty simple. It was just a couple of steps. I don't remember exactly what, but I know one of the things was to start walking every day. And that's what I did, and I started working through my plan secretly. I didn't tell anybody. This was all by myself, in case it didn't work. And thankfully, that is a horrible way to do it, by the way, alone, secretly, in case it didn't work. It's not very successful most of the time. But I started feeling a little bit better pretty quickly. And I'm an introspective person by nature. So if anyone is going to be able to do it on their own, it's an introspective person. But it's not, I don't recommend it. Okay. Like, get support. There's support out there. Get support. But anyway, so I did start to feel a little bit better pretty quickly. Now, the fourth thing I did, and I actually don't recommend this step at all, is I was doing the same thing. I was doing my plan, and I stopped seeing results, right? I was still doing the plan. I was walking. I was kind of watching what I was eating a little bit. I might have been meditating then too, or doing some kind of work. I don't actually think I was at that point. I don't think it occurred to me that was part of what I needed at the time. Because like I said, I never realized that the other symptoms I had been experiencing were related to menopause. And, sometimes we're kind of like our own worst patient, sort of like we don't even recognize the obvious things to do. So I don't think I was doing any of that inner work yet. Not on a regular basis anyway. So I stopped seeing results and I plateaued. Like at the time, I just thought I need to lose weight. I've got to exercise and I've got to eat better. And that's what I was really focused on at that time. And I stopped seeing results. I plateaued. So I changed the plan and I started doing different things. I still wasn't really seeing a lot of results, and I changed the plan again. Different things. Changed the plan again. Different things. So trial and error, right? Not recommended. Find a plan that you know already works for somebody, right? Then I started to recognize, oh my gosh, you know what? I need to do this inner work. That's what I need to do. And when I started doing, that's just the best way for me to put it, inner work, the mind-body practices that I use, more meditation, emotional release, energy work, all of that kind of stuff. So I started working from the inside out, and I started seeing more results, and I got more motivated, and I felt healthier, and I got support in some different ways. Anyway, so I kept the things that worked, and I ditched the rest to keep it simple and doable and high impact. And then I went to, okay, I am so committed to these changes that I'm going to do 75 hard, right? And so I look back and I see that change, and it happened so fast, really. Once I really made that decision, I'll tell you the decision was the turning point, and I do say that. A committed decision is the key to transformation. It really is. I cannot imagine where I'd be right now if I would have stayed stuck in that thinking that this is my life now. If I had accepted that I just had to accept that was my life, that, I'm just going to feel sluggish. I'm just going to feel low energy. I'm just going to be depressed sometimes and not feel like doing anything. If I had just said, this is my life now. Because that was a few years ago. And, where would my life be right now? My physical and mental well-being was going down the tubes. I was gaining weight. I was feeling sluggish, no energy. And even though my weight right now isn't really down, I might even weigh a little bit more than I did then. My physical and mental well-being is better because I don't have all that inflammation. I don't have the headaches. I don't feel depressed. I don't feel anxious. Like I'm not having the symptoms because I did that inner work. And that I just didn't think that was going to happen again. I didn't think I was going to get there again. I thought that I was just going to have to deal with it. I felt, if I look back at that, I really felt no sense of purpose. I was withering into oblivion. Relationships would probably be damaged, if not destroyed, because I didn't have the energy for them. I was always moody, maybe even bitchy, right? And I don't think a lot of relationships would have withstood years and years of that. Money problems, either not making any, depending on other people because of not having the energy to do work that I love, which I'm doing now, or that I would be suffering in a miserable job, barely getting by, if I decided that I just had to power through and accept that that's how it was. I can see how all this could spiral into a horrible life, diminishing self-worth, and darkness. Like I said, for me, meds were never even a consideration. I mean, maybe I would have done it out of desperation, and I do know some people do that, and then they often don't find relief anyway. So, what do you do instead of powering through? Oh, I rhymed. I didn't even mean to do that, but anyway, just no, it does not have to be that way. You do not have to power through. What's the first thing? Make a decision that you're not going to accept it. Make that decision. Have you already made it? Have I convinced you? I don't really want to convince you. It has to come from deep within you. It has to come from your heart. So take a good hard look at everything that's going on in your life and decide, is it okay for you to keep living like that? Get yourself out of the fog, even if just long enough to make that decision and say, no, I don't want to live like this. And then have a plan. And ultimately, even though it was a messy path to get there and figure out my plan, right? It was very messy. It took a long time. I mean, it did and it didn't. It took a relatively long time. I could have done it faster if I had someone guiding me. So the plan included 3 parts: moving my body, food choices, and deep emotional release practices. So the most powerful practices that I used that seemed to have the most impact on how I was feeling is release of disruptive, repeating emotional patterns from my body. Okay? So, number 3, you can get support. Doing this deep work on your own can be a very slow process, and having an objective party to guide you through can help you see things that you might not see on your own. Helps you stay on track, because sometimes it's a bumpy process and you want to back off, or you get out of the habit, or you're kind of just avoiding it because you're like, it's kind of hard. It's not really hard, but sometimes we have a hard time looking at these deep emotional things, and it doesn't have to be hard. It's actually really easy, and you look forward to it if you start doing it in a certain way where you can see how positive it is and how positive the outcome is. And it's helpful to work with somebody to help you see that, because when you're doing it in isolation, it can start to feel really dark at times. But if you're doing it with support, you can get through that darkness so fast, because you have somebody right there shining the light, to show you, hey, what if this is what that means? And it doesn't mean whatever you're thinking it means, that is dark and difficult, right? So we get you through that quicker when you work with somebody else. Anyway, and you know what works from someone who already did the trial and error, and that gets you there faster. So fast results is probably a good idea, right? Now, maybe this kind of thing is not your jam, and you're like thinking, what are you talking about? Emotional release? That sounds weird. I don't get it. I don't know what you're talking about. Or I don't think that kind of stuff works. Well, I'll tell you, I didn't think it was my jam either, but it's super my jam, obviously. I I actually didn't even talk about this kind of stuff very much for a very, very long time until recently because it seemed so weird to me, right? So if it seems weird to you, I get it. Feel free to talk to me about that. I'm totally open to skepticism and answering questions and digging deeper, So if you're the skeptic, don't worry. You're not going to offend me by telling me that. I would actually be a great person to talk to about that because I've been there too. And I'm going to be totally honest with you about stuff too. If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you that. I'm going to be like, you know what? We don't. And the truth is, there's not a lot of evidence out there about this kind of stuff just because it hasn't been studied. And I do see more studies around it. So I'll tell you my little theory here is a lot of people talk about this kind of stuff in the terms of spirituality. And other people talk about these kind of things in the terms of science, like neuroscience. And I really think they're the same thing. Okay? It's all connected. And I'm not saying there's no such thing as spirituality and that science explains everything. I'm just saying it's two different ways to talk about what we see in the world, okay? Just because something can be scientifically explained, or it looks like it might be able to be scientifically explained, it doesn't mean that there's no spiritual aspect to it. It doesn't mean that there is either. So I do my best to be very objective. All right, I'm going down a philosophical rabbit hole, and I didn't really intend to do that. But that's just like the tip of the iceberg there with that. So anyway, my point is, if you have questions about it or if you're skeptical, I get it. And it's not for everybody, and that's cool. But if it is something that's up your alley, that is your cup of tea, then hit me up and we'll chat about getting you through menopause and all of these symptoms and these feelings more gracefully. Take me up on a 30-minute Zoom call. Totally no pressure, no strings. We'll just get you some clarity. And then if it feels like a fit for both of us, we'll talk about ways we could work together. Or we won't. It's not a fit for everyone, and it's not always the right time for someone either. And I totally understand that. I respect that you are an adult and you can make your own decision. I don't play mind games to try to get you to make a decision right away. I know that sometimes people need to sleep on it. I know that sometimes people just aren't ready for something, and I totally respect that, like I said. So have the call with me. You're not wasting my time. It can help you get more clarity on options that are available to you. It helps me get more clarity on the struggles that women are going through, and then I can create better content. So never worry about wasting my time, and never worry about being pressured. This is a win-win no matter what happens at the end, okay? Take me up on the Zoom call, hit me up, and let's talk, okay? There will be a link to schedule in the show notes. And I will talk to you next time.